Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. As always, want to thank everybody for their support over at Patreon. Couldn't do it without you guys.
Much appreciated.
And also with the YouTube memberships. You know, we were talking, obviously, there's been so much talk about the different comets. Comet 3i Atlas. You know, the likelihood that Comet Atlas is just something that's coming by absolute chance is just infinitesimally small. And so many people have done good jobs, you know, when it comes to talking about this. The likelihood that we have two comets right now, we have Comet 3i Atlas, again, third eye Atlas, that's really, I love that. And then we also have Comet C 2025 R2 Swan at the same time, right? Now, okay, a couple of them at the same time. All right, maybe a little bit of a coincidence. Now, let alone all the coincidences just with Comet Atlas in and of itself. And then this newly discovered comet that we just got basically 5 days ago pops out, and it has a tail that's much longer than what Atlas is showing at the moment. But here's the thing. What's the likelihood that they'd both have trajectories that are taking them so close, both of them, to Mars within a couple weeks of each other? So when you look at this, again, to recap Comet Third Eye Atlas, it's on a hyperbolic trajectory through the solar system originating from interstellar space. Will make a close approach to Mars on the 3rd of October, 2025. This flyby occurring at a distance approximately 30 million kilometers, 18 million miles, will provide a rare opportunity for orbiters like ESA's Mars Express and ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter to observe the interstellar visitor. It'll pass 0.19 AU, that's pretty close, 28 million kilometers, from Mars, which is significantly closer than its approach to Earth. But it does also take a path where it gets pretty close to Mars, Venus, and Jupiter. If you listen to the angry astronaut who's fun and does a good job, thinking about this, it would make a lot of sense the path that they chose with the timing of where the planets are to drop a lot of satellites or something else to take observations and perhaps watch what's going on three key planets, Mars, Venus, and Jupiter. And again, Earth, not that close, relatively speaking. Then we have C 2025 R2 Swan detected just the 12th of this month. This one is currently located in the constellation Virgo near the planet Mars and the bright star Spica, and is moving southeast. Expected to make a close approach to Earth in October 2025, with its closest point between October 12th and 21st at distance approximately 0.26 to 0.27 AU. While the comet's orbit is still being refined, preliminary data suggests it passed perihelion on September 12th, 2025, and is now moving away from the Sun. Its orbit is highly elliptical with an estimated period of about 22,554 years, meaning it won't be back anytime soon. Now, this surprised them, and it popped in out of nowhere. They weren't looking for this. Then they give us all these stats, figures and data as if they knew exactly where it came from after the fact, when it just popped up and surprised them 5 days ago. It's a highly eccentric orbit. And again, it's just inside the orbit of Venus now. So it's kind of, in some ways, looking like, it'd make a lot of sense, not that these two are working together, but certainly if you were curious about what's going on planet Earth and perhaps the other inner planets, what we've seen with Swan and what we see with Third Eye Atlas, it makes a lot of sense. And when you really look again at our history too, look at things historically. For instance, the Great Comet of 1811, 1812. There was a great comet. This was a huge, huge deal. completely destroyed the old world order via massive earthquakes, massive tidal waves, volcanic eruptions, and a great mud flood. Yeah, no, do you think that they are just simply rocks going through space? Absolutely not. Sometimes. But, I think a lot of times they're not. I think, again, what we take as comets could be vehicles of some sort. Sometimes perhaps even actual just consciousnesses themselves checking things out. So when you think of the Great Comet of 1811, 1812, well, what else do you think of? We think of the Great New Madrid earthquakes, 1811, 1812, exactly the same time. It's different when the New Madrid goes because half the country, better than half the country, will feel it. If we're talking, again, a magnitude 7.2, something in the low to mid sevens, because of, again, the craton, the way that the land is laid with much more dense rock, it'll travel much farther. It rang church bells in Boston. People down in Florida felt it too. Texas, you name it, up again, Indiana, all throughout the Midwest. This was huge. And this happened exactly at the same time as the Great Comet. As you see, this crack across America, a second crack through America here, showing rifts, continental rifts. And where are the cracks intersecting? At the New Madrid seismic zone, which, by the way, when you looked at the eclipses, again, to me, August 21st, 2017, that was just like a week after I started the first channel. Oh, and I remember going out in Sarasota, standing out in the backyard and, having my eclipse glasses things on and looking at it and just feeling, wait a minute, feels like we just stepped into the twilight zone. It just feels weird. And then April 8th, 2024, that turns out to be the end of the Kali Yuga. We didn't know that ahead of time, but it came through with the guides that, that was the official ending of the Kali Yuga. Recognize, too, that there is a transitional period which may last, it may last hundreds of years, where we're going from one Yuga into another Yuga. Again, we want to step right out into a golden age. That would be beautiful. But we may have to accept just some positive change in incremental steps and hope that we can wake up as many people as possible. Do you really think this is a coincidence? No, it's not a coincidence. I mean, how could you think this is a coincidence? How could we possibly think, the two comets coming at the same time and making note of the inner circle of planets, especially, again, Earth-Mars, that Earth-Mars connection. There is a huge Earth-Mars connection. In fact, Mars is known as the god of war for a reason. A really good reason. And at the same time, Venus is love. Yet, how do they portray Venus? As a hot, inhospitable planet that could not support life. Again, everything that we're given is given from the point of view of a control system that has taken us over for a long time. Again, look at the amount of the country that will feel it if the New Madrid goes again. And I'm not saying that it's going to go again just because of these two comets. Because regardless of what these comets are, and by the way, we do see them as ships. They are vehicles and they are transporting consciousnesses. This is really what we have gotten. There is this thing historically about comets being associated with natural disasters in the past. For example, 17th century, people believe that comets influenced the weather and helped to manufacture great wines, by the way, as they increased temperatures and thus the grapes to be sweeter. In the Middle Ages, it was thought that comets heralded punishment for sin, which took the form of horrible natural events like floods and earthquakes. There's also the theory that a comet or several comet fragments, known as the Clovis comet, impacted about 13,000 years ago, Younger Dryas period, and triggered the Younger Dryas extinction event that wiped out, all the big saber-toothed tigers and woolly mammoths. By the way, they've also found that there was two different types of mammoths that were here in the New World, quote unquote, in the Americas that were really very, very distinct genetically, and almost perplexing to look at it when you had these mammoths that were in Mexico, very different than mammoths that were down in Peru, and also mammoths up here in the United States and Canada area. How could you have them in the middle that were so genetically different from ones above and below them without them? You could, if people were cultivating. Again, what we see is and what we get as history is simply not accurate. It's completely revisionist to disguise this control system that in many ways ultimately comes from Mars. This is Spirit Science 13 years ago, the Atlantean catastrophe. And I do think that Spirit Science was great and a lot of fun. 1.53 million subscribers. They took a long hiatus. But they do talk about an event where the Martians, these beings on Mars, kind of caused their own catastrophe because of their ways, wiped out because of war. And, technology, their own atmosphere, made their own planet inhospitable for life in abundance. And so, some went inside the planet, others came here, and they mingled with us. Now, they are humans, and there are also these reptilian energies that come with them, overshadowing them as well. Well, this was basically the beginning of the end for what was, at that point in time, a pretty peaceful Earth. And they came and eventually opened up the door to the Atlantean catastrophe. The Mars influence infected Earth and took over Earth, in fact, and caused and brought about the Atlantean catastrophe. Very, very interesting stuff. I'll put the link there again. It does feel very, very accurate for the most part. The bigger thing is, again, the indigenous people that were here on Earth, and then the new Martian influence, which went about doing what they do, which is conquering, controlling, very aggressive, very warrior-like. And absolutely, this is the system that has been in place here. So again, going about doing their thing, subjugating those that, had already been on planet Earth. So when we see the comets, it doesn't mean that the comet is doing the damage. That's the thing I want to get across. It very well is the system that's already in place here that is perhaps putting out warnings to other beings that are maybe more benevolent or just simply curious as to how are the humans managing to handle, their Martian occupancy, the Martian control of the human society. Are they waking up yet? Again, this is what we have going on. There are many different groups that are watching what's happening on Earth. And as the Martians had laid waste to Mars, and again, this is the same system that goes back to that which we call Nibiru. And if you looked at Nibiru, it's very much it's a mothership now because the natural ecosystem has been completely wiped out. It is real. It's a fourth density planet / mothership that is kept functioning by technology. And again, they utilize a black hole to travel. A black hole, that is their navigation system. And, Nibiru has been outside of the orbit of Uranus and Neptune for all the time that we've been aware of it, again, going back to the beginning of this channel and all, and will not be allowed to get any closer by the galactics because it had in the past caused a ton of damage. And it is part of the system that put the very moon in place. And yes, the moon is occupied by these self-same Martians and their allies has a mothership in our orbit to control the masses and utilize the energy of humans. So, what we see with these two comets is that, yes, these are vehicles and they do have consciousness associated with them, but they themselves, we don't get are malignant, let's say, malevolent, dark, evil, and coming to do harm to us. No. It's the system that's entrenched in place that tells other beings don't get involved or they will trigger. Again, these natural looking events of catastrophes that are associated with the comets. So anyway, I'm going to hand this off to Cindy for her take on this.
Well, I'm just looking at it, and when I first started looking at 3i Atlas, I felt like there was a mission for it to come and bring some sort of enforcement or some sort of backup. And now that we have this swan coming through, it really makes me feel like they're going so close to Mars. I feel like there could very well do something with Mars. Maybe make that make Mars play nicer.
Perhaps, yeah. I think it's more of a warning for the control system. And Cindy got a very strong message from the galactics that we need to get more detail before we share. But I do think, again, the worst of the timelines, it feels, has been averted. If you wonder why the system seems to persecute and oppress those shamanic indigenous people and put in place a very, very, very rigid orthodox fundamentalist belief system, it's because that comes from Mars. That literally comes from another planet. And yes, human and humanoid life is abundant. Again, there's in the Hindu scriptures, all you got to do is look to the Hindu scriptures. And they talk about hundreds of thousands of humanoid species, each different from each other. Many of them can interbreed, that live in our galaxy. It was understood completely in the ancient Vedic world that we're not alone. No, and that different humanoid beings, and some that aren't not so human, come and go all the time. The only time we haven't had this is during the Dark Kali Yuga, when the control system was put in place, and had absolute control. And so they gave us an all-new system of belief based on fear. You better do this or else. And this is exactly the system that is now being exposed for what it is. When you look again to how, we just take the United States, for instance. And again, that European colonizing force was the system in action. And ultimately, you could follow that back to the Roman Empire. Morphed into the British Empire, the American Empire, and they just simply want to change it into something else, but it's the same power structure. Yet their time is pretty much over. They're being exposed for what they are. All the details are coming out, and they're all going to be out. And you'll still have some people that will choose to stay with the system. But yes, absolutely. The comets are a huge, huge sign of the times. And they do show that there's great changes afoot. I mean, enormous changes.
Huge changes. And I think people are feeling it inside of their bodies. And there's certain triggering events that are separating people. And we have to be mindful not to fall into the fray. And don't allow yourself to be falling into the hate and the anger. Because that's what the controllers want, this ruling class that basically controls us and keeps us just so that we can't really do anything with ourselves. We have to stay on the wheel and constantly work, and we don't have time to do our research. So, yeah, don't fall into the fray.
No, keep your frequency high. Again, when you even look to the Bible and, Yeshua is... encounters the ruling class at that point in time, Judea and the Pharisees, the Sadducees, get behind me, Satan. The existing religious power structure is the control system that ultimately comes from Mars. Lord of hosts, that's again the god of war. That's literally what we're talking about. It's literally what it translates to. So again, it's in the Bible, and it's clear as can be. Anytime the humans stray a little bit and think for themselves or what have you, don't follow exactly what the warlord wants, then there's natural disasters that occur, plagues and strange clouds in the sky. It's just so blatantly obvious for everybody except those that are so fear-based, indoctrinated, that they're terrified to discover the truth. And it's understandable, because it is a scary realization that the planetary invasion happened in the deep past, and we are behind enemy lines. We are an occupied people. Just finally realizing that we are an occupied people, and that the ones that are occupying us look like us, but they're not like us. They are not like us at all. And we can choose to go up into places where they just simply can't go because of their frequency.
Indeed.
As always, guys, much love, source bless, and namaste.
Namaste.